A very good morning. You're still watching Morning at 10 TV, 24 minutes past 7 o'clock. I'm Arnold Sagawa. Time to talk some infrastructure. There's many organizations, or should I say financial institutions and multilateral lenders that whenever they have programs going on and facilities they are forwarding to many developing countries, their primary focus happens to be infrastructure. Problem is, much of that money and the funds never reach their intended destination. To help us unpack this particular conversation, I'm joined to my left, Dr. Levi Kabagambe, who is a procurement expert, and to my extreme left, we have Mr. Gilbert Sendugwa, who is the ED Afric, that's Africa Freedom of Information Center. Gentlemen, many thanks for making time to speak to us. Let me start with you, Dr. Levi. As I mentioned in the introduction there, the likes of Afrexim Bank, the likes of Africa Development Bank, even the EU, a primary focus has been for the past 20 years hard infrastructure. The biggest challenge is when it comes to this, the funds and the facilities getting to this hard infrastructure for the road to be seen. Many times, oftentimes should I say, we just end up with just nothing. In your view, what would you say is the primary issue to start with?
Yeah, thank you, Arnold. There are quite a portfolio of issues.
Portfolio.
And unpacking them can take months and months, if not years. But for purposes of this question, the whole game starts from identifying exactly what kind of infrastructure you need, the operating context that infrastructure will be delivered, and that means you have to dive into what ordinarily the engineers call the designs. Again, there is a whole host of stakeholders amidst that delivery of that infrastructure. And here we are talking about time. It will be ticking. We are talking about budgets. We are also talking about the rules of the game. So in a nutshell, before you know it, if you are not well organized, even if you had the money, you have no infrastructure. Even if you have money and you have willing stakeholders, you could have no infrastructure, especially if the designs are also not up to speed. So there are very many aspects which come up into play to deliver infrastructure. It's a very complex animal. Everybody must be doing it right first time. In infrastructure, there is no gambling. You cannot say we shall start it, but we shall see how we end there. Infrastructure is not just a simple commodity. It's a deliverable which is a function of very many variables. You have time in it, you have technical expertise in it, you have also the stakeholders around its delivery, you have time which is of essence, you have got stakeholder targets, you have also sometimes the political segments also requiring that this be done.
Right.
So at the end of the day, yes, if all those segments are not up to the speed, you may have no infrastructure.
It's interesting, Gilbert, I want to bring you into the conversation. There's something Dr. Levi here mentioned, doing it right the first time. And I can argue that we've got it wrong so many times. And Gilbert, I don't know what you say to this, because you cannot make the same, I mean, you know the old saying, fool me once, then, shame on you, fool me twice. I don't want to go like George Bush, but you get where I'm going here.
Yes.
How are we getting it wrong so many times?
Yes, thank you very much, Arnold, and good morning, viewers and listeners. Yes, it's true that many times we haven't got it right in putting in place infrastructure. I mean, look at China, look at Ireland. 30 years ago, these were developing countries. but they have done it right, and they're in the right place. So when it comes to African economies, what are the issues? And what do we learn from those issues to make it right the next time? And I think that is the question that needs to be answered. Now, Coast has recently done a study on fair business practices. Now, fairness when it comes to procurement of infrastructure projects is very critical, because it is that fairness that gives the confidence to all the stakeholders that Dr. Levy has mentioned. From the business perspective, a bidder will want to know that if I invest my time and money to put together a quality bid, and this is what will give me this job, they will do it. Now, if they don't have that confidence and trust, they will not do it. Now, the question is, do you think that our processes are trusted by business?
But that, I want to understand, what does your report find
Yes,
for the Ugandan example?
The report finds that, for example, that 51% of bids got less than 3 bidders expressing interest. So it means that in that circumstance, there is lack of trust. The market does not trust procuring entities to do the right thing. 2, the study also finds that 7.3% as the average number of bids per tender. What does that mean? It means that for some agencies, the trust is very high, and when they advertise opportunities, tender opportunities, the market responds very high.
Oversubscribed.
So that's why you see that the average is very high for the average number of tenders. But then when you say that, let's see those that get less than 3.
It's quite fascinating, because the spread shows you that there's an oversubscription on one side, leaning towards one side. It's like a seesaw. And then when it comes, what you first mentioned, just over 50% is actually below 3 bidders.
Yes.
Yet the average is, so the spread of the mean, of the median of sorts, is quite interesting, in the standard deviation. Dr. Kabagambe, I see a very interesting card here. Sorry, Gilbert, I interrupted you.
Yeah.
Dr. Levi, you also double as a public procurement and disposal of public assets authority, that's the government of Uganda, as a PPDA board member. And I want you to speak to what Gilbert is alluding to. This report shows a heavy skew, leaning towards one side. And isn't it your role as the PPDA to make sure that, first of all, that is a vote of confidence to the other guys who are getting 7+ bidders? And what is the PPDA doing to make sure that these other guys who are getting 3 bidders and less, who are over 50%, also step up and get over 7 bidders per contract, should I say? Bid.
Mr. Segawa, I didn't know that you are highly statistical like that.
Oh, I'm a PhD candidate.
I should supervise you. You should be my student soon. I'm very impressed the way you have dived into these numbers and given them that context.
Gilbert did the research.
Gilbert did the research. You have done the interpretation, and which is very critical indeed. It is true that proportion is very fascinating. And you have actually introduced another interpretation.
A standard deviation?
Well, it's standard, but oversubscription, which is very interesting here. That, in a nutshell, means in this country, we have got completely 2 worlds, so to speak. That there are those entities that are really very good, quite loved, quite impressive, doing a good job. You put a tender out there, they come running. Who is that? NTV, Uganda. They will run to give you a bid.
Drinks coffee.
And they don't know, they don't care the outcome. And that's what these statistics mean. We come to offer our services to you without worry that we may not win. We know one person will win, but that one person could be me. So before you know it, 100 people have delivered their bids. And that's what these figures mean. Now, putting it to a lay person out there viewing us and listening to us, in some entities, when you put out a bid, people begin a conversation. Can I put in? Can I not?
Should I trust them?
Should I trust them? Again, that's what Gilbert is saying. So that conversation may go on while the bidding time is also going on. By the time you close the tendering process, they are either in the conversation out there, meaning no bid has come. So to a lay person, this is exactly what we are talking about, the confidence. So if people don't have confidence in your management process of procurement, you will not attract bidders. And that's what the statistics is saying, that actually 51%, or just put plainly that 5 in 10 tenders put out will attract less than 3 bids. Yes? Which means the other almost half will take care of the balance, which you call the loopsidedness. So this is the issue which must be resolved. Why are people not, on average, trusting? Why is it that some entities could be trusted while others are not trusted? Part of the debate could be the other host of issues like your transparency record and also some limitations generally which inhibit bidder participation. And these have been disclosed in practice, partly the high qualification requirements of certain tenders. You've seen where they are saying we want 10 years experience in delivering this. And you're saying, surely you need 10 years of experience in delivering that very, very requirement. What about 5? What about 3? Is experience critical in your delivery, or I need a general experience acquired everywhere? Before you know it, it could be a limiting factor. There is also when the factor could be the financial requirements you have fixed. You must have your financial record up to these billion shillings. Your bank, your balance sheet should be reading highly and should have been certified by a reputable audit firm to confirm to us that you have really the money on the accounts. But importantly, sometimes it is to be in your own world, not knowing the current business context, where you walk into the bank and get the funding based on other parameters now than wanting to fix my financials based on my very own money I must be having in the bank. So some of these requirements also inhibit participation. Before you know it, people have not brought you a bid because of what you really...
that's quite interesting. Gilbert, let me bring you back in. There's a very interesting example that surfaced, I think it was last month, the transformer case that the president even went on to speak very passionately about.
Sure.
And gentlemen, this is quite interesting because on one hand we're pushing BUBU, build Uganda, buy Uganda, build Uganda, and on the other hand, the transformers that are being made in the country, supposedly they're up to standard. I am not an engineer myself to give you the quality control figures.
Yeah.
But these gentlemen said, we have done everything. We've ticked all the boxes. And when the body comes in to do the procurement, you know, we're being overlooked. And we're a Ugandan firm, and we're supporting Ugandans, and we're paying Ugandan taxes. Give me a sense of the prescriptions going forward that can address this kind of thing. Just before we head over to the PPDA gentleman, Dr. Levi, to give us a sense of how we kind of tweak our procurement processes to build our very own here, same way China has.
Yes, that is a very important issue of local participation, because every time a contractor gets opportunity, they invest time and money and skill to do it very well. So each time they get a new contract, a new challenge, they up their level of capacity in order to deliver. So in a way to enhance this capacity and build local participation, which means keeping jobs home, which means transferring skills and all of that, give them opportunities, at least that are measured according to, commensurate to the current capacity. Now, one of the indicators that we looked at in this
Capacity
study,
is developed by doing.
by doing.
That's the
And
message.
Dr.
It's actually
Levy,
a product, yeah.
and Dr. Levy talked about it, that for some or most of the jobs, experience is an important measure.
But how are you going to get the experience if you're not getting
to build it, give them. Now, one of the things that this study looks at is what is the origin of companies that win tenders. Now, in the 18 procuring entities that we studied, we found, when you look at the numbers, it is healthy. 99.3% of the contracts were being done by local companies. Now, the problem that we find is on the value, where we found that nearly this 0.7 take almost, I think, about 3 times of the value of this 99.9%. So it's an issue that government needs to look at and address. But at the same time, I think local contractors also have an important role to play, because if you're a client, you're a procuring entity, you want your project to be delivered on time. And that you need assurance that firms have capacity to do that. So I think maybe that's why they risk, or they fear to take risk in giving these big opportunities to local firms.
It's honestly such an interesting
But
conversation.
we also see in this study other critical issues, time overruns, that these 99.3% contracts tend to delay to be being delivered. That also cost overruns is an issue. And cost overruns could come because, of small things like delays in processing payments. And that takes time. Meanwhile, the contractor, if they have taken a loan in the bank, it is taking interest and all that. So I think to improve the market, government has to take deliberate effort and make sure that processes are easy, that local firms are facilitated beyond money, but facilitated in a way that there is a good conversation that is continuous to say, what are your challenges, how can they be addressed, why do we have this low level of responsiveness, and which are the entities where there is low responsiveness, and maybe what types of tenders do we have low competitiveness, and focus on those. Do we build capacities for firms that work in that space or not? But also there's an issue of lack of disclosure. I think of the 18 entities, about 4 did not disclose anything. And the others which attempted to disclosed only planning information.
Gilbert, let me just pause that, because I want us to get into the transparency and the accountability conversation just immediately after this. Dr. Levi, just address this transformer issue from where Gilbert left off. Because yes, we are in agreement here that you need to, first of all, get to build capacity, you need the experience. But if you're not getting the experience, if you're not getting the bids and the contracts in, then how are you going to build your own capacity as Uganda? You have Ethiopia on the other hand, Rwanda is having Volkswagen in there, coming in assembling cars. Ethiopia is no exception. Morocco is having good deals with Renault. But on the other hand, transformers that we are going to use, and they're being made here. On the other hand, we look outside, worsen our balance of payment position by buying from, you know, other foreign entities. Give me a sense of PPDA. Is this a conversation you're having?
Yeah, yeah. At PPDA, we had this conversation quite many years ago. So these new developments are just perhaps trying to make us a little bit ask further questions. That is where we are adequate, or we need to move more steps ahead. And I will illustrate this. There are three major developments that are happening in the public procurement space. Unfortunately, some of our private sector players might have not been keenly focused on. The first one is there is increasing use of EPC contracts, and this we are really EPC, E standing for engineering, P for procurement, C for construction. So the paradigm currently, largely in the complex, particularly complex procurements, infrastructure where it lies largely, what governments or government agencies are doing is to say, one, we are going to contract a company that will design, will do the engineering part of the whole works project. Two, they will do their own sourcing of procurements required to deliver the project.
And those like turnkey operations?
Call them turnkey. Call them greenfield
Doctor,
projects.
me and you could have a very long conversation with this.
I told you you are going to be my student soon.
And
Anyway.
I think also in the context of the transformer issue, if you have local investors who have taken a risk
Yes.
to invest and produce good transformers, and they are not being procured by government, then it sends a wrong signal to the rest of would be local investors.
Exactly.
To take the risk.
Exactly. Exactly. But let me deliver this first
The
conception.
greenfield and the turnkeys.
Exactly. So under EPC contracting modality, which is quite unknown by our private sector players, some of them, but the capacity building is going on, and I know many of them have attended some of these trainings. What government does, we are not saying it is the best, but it is one of the growing perspectives of acquisition of high-value complex projects. EPC, what the government does is that get a contractor who shall design the project, shall manage the procurement of whatever it takes to deliver the project, right? And then construct that project and actually commission that project. It is actually EPC-C, EPCC. You get it? Engineer, procure, construct, commission. So the whole value chain is under the command of another person. So back to our colleagues in this country, even if you have got a good product like transformers, under this kind of delivery model, government may really have nothing much if it does not actually take another intervention. It will, before it knows, the gentleman is complaining. I have invested here, my transformers are here, we hear you guys installing transformers. Where do you buy them? EPs.
But
Could we be doing that?
Doctor, you are part of the government, and are you having, because you know these things.
Actually, I'm coming what government did
Okay.
to create a business opportunity for our people. Now, in 2008, a guideline was issued, and it is widely known. They know it. They even use it, and I like when they even run to us to complain when it is fraud. It is called the a guideline to promote local content under reservation and preference schemes. What in a nutshell it says, we have categorized certain kind of jobs, supplies, and kind of works with some value thresholds and say, this is for local people. The cable corporation must be smiling wherever he is. He knows we zoned him in that. We said, we have our cables in this country. As long as you are constructing, you will need cables for your engineering works. We as Uganda, we have cables.
We have that sorted.
We have that sorted. Go there. It is documented. It is legal. We have our steel production companies. If you are going to do that, use our people's steel here. We have it. They must be laughing, saying, yeah, we got it. If you are in Apro business, as long as what you need is in that category, we have it sorted.
How often do you update that?
It is every 6 months. We should be updating it.
I love the keyword, should.
I think
yes.
from
So
what we see in this
yes.
study and others before is that the legal and policy environment is not lacking.
Exactly.
But what is lacking is the enforcement aspect.
But Uganda
example,
is a country that is
and that
no
is
stranger
where-
to good laws. We have arguably the best laws.
And that's why we think that
Mr. Implementation.
entities like PPDA should be auditing procuring entities to see, the level of compliance with, for example, this guideline on local content. You'll be shocked that, it is left there, and we have seen it also beyond this study, but also in newspapers, complaints of that nature. How come Bobo is being flouted by this procuring entity in this regard? So I think an action on
implementation.
Yes,
I want us to just take off, Doctor. You take off the doctor hat for now. Gilbert, you'll also take off the ED hat for now, and just remain bare as just a Ugandan,
citizen,
as just a citizen.
But Mr. Sego, I wanted to clarify this so that our viewers have hope into what the authority is doing.
Please finish that point.
Yes.
Finish that point.
We have just conducted a monitoring exercise. It is regular, but I just have to announce that the recent exercise, just a few months ago, I revealed that the uptake of this regulatory endeavor is really impressive. UNRWA has supported quite very many local companies. Even these statistics you are reading of 99% local, it is in part out of that uptake, because a lot of contracts are reserved for them and they are really taking them. 99.3 local contractors is no mean achievement, but it is through this. UNRWA has done a lot. We have also checked with NITI. They were able to disclose, I cannot disclose their revenues here, but by the time a private sector tells you, we made a lot of money, it means it was really a lot. We have also checked with the steel, Kabawa, what is that company?
Steel and Tube?
Roofings.
Roofings.
Oh, roofings.
They also were comfortable to say, well,
no, roofings is...
since you did this, we have had huge sales. So in a nutshell, well, there is always room for greater improvement, but it is taking root, and the Ugandan farms are steadily getting better and better. Of course, they need to improve their capacity. To take these opportunities.
Definitely. What I was saying before is we just take off those hats and just remain as bare citizens. We hosted the...
Should be just Ugandans now.
Just Ugandans. We hosted the gentleman from the Transformer thing. The Transformer story actually hurt me personally. And because we pushed so hard for intra-Africa trade, we pushed so hard for a regional trade, NSSF, buying regional equities and investing in the region. And when someone like them, the Transformer company, comes up and invests that much and then they're overlooked, it was very painful. And they were here and they mentioned something that was interesting, the fact that these other companies that win the bids, the fancy ones with the glowing balance sheets, when they win the contracts, some of their transformers get bust. And when they're spoilt, they actually bring them back to the same Ugandan company that did not get the tender, and they do the repairs for them, and then they put them back in the system. So again, monitoring it's just appalling. I don't even know if that's now a police case. I think you could advise. I'm very green.
I think.
But as a Ugandan,
yes,
it's self-defeating.
Yeah, let me really come in as a typical Ugandan, but because some hearts may not even follow fully, I am privileged to have maybe more information. But as government, and particularly the agency, I am a director, this matter is even getting a notch higher. Of course, we are saying some of these regulations may not be sufficient, but there is also the heart. You know, you can write all the laws. Behind the implementer is a human being. You are aware that in this country, I think it's an African attitude, where you find that people believe that their own is not good. Their own is not good. They rather pick the same, but from outside. Only to reach here, you find that the suit you are putting on is actually made down here. You say, no, mine is from UK. But they said, yes, it is only having a brand. So I think what is coming out strongly, and I'm happy that the CEO of this country put a stamp, if I can mean a stamp, by saying that.
He was quite agitated.
Yes, he said this nonsense must stop. And of course, we are saying, all the laws have already said, we promote local content, we promote boo-boo policy. Now that if there is anybody there who has been discriminating certain products made in Uganda, I think they are on notice. That's what I can say. They are on full notice. We must consume our very own products so that we work with our own contractors. We fail with them, we grow with them. Even where we run, thinking it's the best, we just don't know the story. They also fail and fail, but we are supported. That's why perhaps they perfected the technologies.
Definitely.
And that's why they're there.
Definitely.
Yes.
Gilbert, you can address this too. Then we'll just head into that accountability and transparency issue that you had raised earlier on. Because definitely I am of the view that if many of these bids are very open, very, very open, and post the bidding, these are also made public knowledge. And people are very clear that, you know what, Gilbert, you lost to this guy, and then you see his financials, you see his experience, you see the capacity, you see the countries he has implemented some of these projects and facilities, and you say, you know what, yeah, I lost to Levi here, but yeah, he's been around.
Yes.
How essential is it for us to spearhead transparency and accountability going forward as a solution? And maybe also just talk about the transformation briefly.
Yeah, thank you very much, Arnold. You see, everything on this journey starts with transparency. Transparency will give confidence to the market. I said that. Transparency will give confidence even to local consumers who don't trust local products. Because if there is transparency, then the people have the confidence that yes, they have done it right, and we should trust them. Now the problem is that is where procuring entities are failing. In another study, we have looked at the health sector, and we found that since PPDA established the government procurement portal, 6 agencies of those that we studied had never published anything. 6 agencies of the 20 that we studied had never published anything on the government procurement portal.
But they still
now, in
win
terms
the
of
contracts.
value,
But they're winning the contract.
yes.
Okay.
Now, of those that published something, this was very, very small. That only 7% of the expected value was disclosed by the 14 entities that disclosed something. So you can imagine. So you cannot build confidence when you are hiding. You cannot, even when you have problems, my view is that they should be
Out in the
discussed.
open.
They should be made
in the
open.
open and discussed, and that is how people will say this agency needs help. So I think these procuring entities, ministries, departments, and agencies are lacking on being transparent. They are lacking on being accountable to citizens who pay the taxes. This report, the main finding is, again, lack of disclosure. So I think we appreciate the concern of His Excellency, but he has all the means and the power to compel the agencies to implement the law. The law says disclose. So,
But is it enough to make threats?
if they are not, how will you know that they are not implementing BUBU when they are not disclosing? How will you know that they are implementing this regulation of local content when they are not disclosing? So it should not be up to the agency to choose what to disclose and when to disclose. No, it is the law, and the law should be enforced. And I think if the president wants to see real change, I think that is where he needs to put emphasis. Require entities to disclose. Now, once he does that, now me as a citizen and our groups, we shall help him to analyze this data and say, this is what this data is saying. Performance is at this level.
But Gilbert, have
These
you,
are things that
have you made these findings public to Levi here? Because
yes, we have.
I'm seeing him writing too. It's like,
Yes, actually we have.
because some of this stuff is just appalling. How does someone just wake
Since
up and not publish?
2015,
For a
we
record.
have had a very good relationship with PPDA,
Yes.
and we have worked together to improve on disclosure, to give them feedback on performance in disclosure levels, to give feedback on performance on projects. Say, look at this point, and PPDA has been very responsive. We have this conversation on.
I love that
now,
both of you are
the
here.
challenge is with the procuring entities themselves.
Let me also bring
Levi,
some
please,
hope
I don't
here.
even need to be here.
Yes,
Please, speak to
let
this.
me also bring some hope here. That yes, I want to say that government has long addressed this even more practically. But like you have said, it will take patient people to do it.
But
So
Levi,
in
people
terms
are not
of
publishing the
yes,
figures.
that's exactly what I've said. Even now, that has been addressed. You see this book?
Okay.
What is that?
Electronic government procurement.
Thank you. Electronic government procurement has come into force a few days ago. Our target, after a series of targets missing, Corona intervening in the launch, we said July 1st. So starting with the 10 entities on the pilot, and very soon it will be rolled all over. So talk about disclosure. You will be doing it yourself. You journalists here, you will just be going on the EGP and checking, because it is going to have all other players. Upon registration, you can log in for particular interests regarding which kind of information you can see. So we are saying that the platform for disclosing has even moved away from the government procurement portal. This GPP is talking about. It was not quite robust. Now with electronic government procurement, the portal is really by far robust than the other, and a number of players will be logging in. And everything is going to be done online. Bids, submission, by the way.
Yeah,
even
that's
bidders
where I
will
was
be
going.
doing that
Yeah,
online.
that's where I was going.
Exactly.
I get to bid, I get to put in all my papers online, then on this particular portal, then whatever you guys decide, you will make this information public. This is Gilbert 1, Gilbert's company is this.
Exactly. With EGP, bidders will submit their bids online. Evaluation online. Results there. On delivery through your click, you will have a feedback. either through an SMS or through your email account. We have received your bid. After every process, you are able to track it. You are even able to log in and say how far are they.
And the journalist, we get to see this information.
You still have your window.
Not the back end, of course.
Of course, you will still have certain windows where you can see what you should see, all right? And if you want to see more, there is where you can log and say, I want this. If you just cannot get the information because of the stage the procurement is, you still will be fed back that, yes, this is yet here, it will be here. So this is where the future in terms of policy framework and implementation, in fact, is. I think government, when this is delivered as a product, we are addressing the issue of disclosure, 70%. And right now, because of the dual process, you know, people can upload some information. Others will say the internet is bad. Then we have brought a physical copy. When you check on the portal, it is not there. They say, ah, no, it was physical somewhere. You did not just check it. But when we migrate fully there is no hard copy. It is there or it is not there. You get it?
Gentlemen, how essential is it for us to, we have only 5 minutes to go. I know a good conversation always flies by.
Yeah.
Let's wrap it up with just corruption. There's a particular gentleman who, well, the media covered it saying that he stole money for bicycles.
The media.
the media has a way with words. I'm only paraphrasing that. How essential, how can we tackle the corruption issue when you have people at the top, big ministers, who can run off with the procurement money for something as, it's bicycles. It's bicycles, and these same bicycles are going to, be rolled out across the country. How essential is it for us to have stringent prison sentences or repercussions for us to make sure that if you're caught doing this, you are going in the can for God knows maybe 25 years, as opposed to just a slap on your wrist? Some of these gentlemen are out there walking. Gilbert, maybe you could wrap up with that.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think, true, what you have said is a serious matter of concern. In fact, the government itself, years back, carried out a study and said that 30% of procurement value is lost through.
I love how Gilbert, you just slap on these statistics, and,
yes.
And you just move on.
Now, how can it be cured? You see, citizens have to realize that in life, there are interests. Everyone has interests. And they should have interests and push those interests. But now look at the situation where, someone steals money, goes and buys votes, and he secures himself or herself because they happen now to have a voice representing this. Because that is what is happening, you see. Almost everyone now, you see. I say,
you want to say that the corrupt want to have representation?
Yes, that's what happened. I mean, we see His Excellency, he told us recently that there are a number of, he has been hitting hard on corruption, chasing people from jobs, and then everyone is speaking nomination papers. Now, and then, so the point I'm saying is that citizens, just as those who are steering have interests and are working to safeguard those interests through those means, citizens also should recognize that they have interests and be able to push them. And how can they push them? First of all, the law makes it every information, apart from information which safeguards national security and protection of privacy, the rest is public. This procurement information is public that we have been talking about. So they need to be informed by making information requests. We went to Ntungamo, monitoring NAD's program, and we found nothing. Documents are saying 14 acres planted. You go on the ground, there's nothing. Documents saying 7 acres of acres planted. There's nothing.
It's always
No.
good when these things are said by someone like you, who as opposed to us, the journalists. Please go on. Please go on, Gilbert.
So the thing is that what are citizens doing? You need to look at these documents and ask government, where are the gardens? You have paid for 14 acres. Where are they? And if you cannot show me the gardens, so what are you doing about the one who received the money? What are you doing about the one who who paid the money?
Because receipts.
The documents are saying everything was satisfactorily done and payment should be made. So I think that is what is going to change the conversation. So people have to put a demand. Goodwill is important, but it's not enough. Goodwill of leaders is important, but it's not enough. It's like a chameleon. When it is on this chart, it will turn like this. So also leaders, like now the president, they will respond to the environment. You get what I'm saying? When people are asking questions, why do you have a tainted minister, a tainted member of parliament? What internal measures do you have in the party to ensure that whoever is there, actually the values of the party?
But that's not a party problem. That's
no, I mean it goes from party to government and everywhere.
This is now
but the point I'm making is that to solve this equation, we need engaged citizens. The laws are there, which says information should be out. The laws are there, which says these are the procedures. The laws are there, which say when they are flouted, this is what should happen. But we don't see.
Again, implementation.
Implementation on that level of accountability.
Gilbert, let me just put a pause on that. Let's hand over to Dr. Levi. The gentleman, to my understanding, might still be out. The example that I used of the bicycles. Of course, there's a due process. You don't just wake up and throw someone in just because suddenly he's drinking expensive coffee, yet he used to have just one donut the whole day.
But maybe on that point, what Cost is trying to do, because again, these are initial
very briefly.
Yes, very briefly, is it has set up a multi-stakeholder approach where there are people from government, civil society, and business to have an ongoing conversation. And then it has a global standard which prescribes how data should be disclosed. And then there is an approach we call assurance process, which analyzes and looks at the data and comes up with. And then finally, the social accountability, helping different stakeholders, media, business, and citizens to engage, and the government, of course, to engage and use the findings from these processes. Thank you.
Gilbert, you've eaten into Dr. Levi's space. Dr. Levi, you will have the last word.
Exactly.
Briefly,
just to tie the whole thing, first of all, I want to solve the equation which he has put on the whiteboard. But it's solving it from the other side. But let me also join in. Let me bring in some variables in that.
Sounds like a regression.
And also, but this we shall have to take it from there. These regression models. Now, first, he's aware we have got a memorandum of understanding now. We are a working relationship with the CSOs and the Public Procurement Authority. This animal called corruption, the moment you want to own it, that this is my docket, you can't have a docket called corruption that you are responsible for. How can you head that docket? It's just a difficult issue. You can only coordinate it. Many people must join the model to deal with it. So as the Public Procurement Authority, they are in the equation. They know. That's why he's telling you he went to we would have even stopped him, because it is a question of calling them that our procurement matters don't deal with anybody outside the entity. He would be one call away, but he was able to reach there. What does that mean? There is this willingness of now disclosing and unmasking this corruption wherever it is. And to me, that is a plus.
Yes.
Then in number two, procurement regulatory authority plus other accountability sector agencies are now working even much more together than ever before. The journalists have been also trained. I think we must train. We've not yet seen you in our I think I will enroll you. We want responsible also journalism. I like it that you must disseminate information that is authentic as well, from informed point. I have a number of journalists I have been supporting here. They call me, they say, can you clarify this? I clarify. Then they air here. Yeah. I know.
Of course, many of them are NTV staff.
Yeah, they are here. Reina is always, if you check his phone, you will say, Kavagambe is here. Those are the guys, and the Chamagero has also been enrolled now, and you have also been enrolled. So what we are saying is that responsible journalism, on point, that's when you can even hit the corrupt. But as long as you don't even have the facts, they will say, after all, he has messed it. They will say you will lose. And many of these cases have been lost because some of us who are the experts in some of these kind of nitty-gritties, we are never even called upon. I know many cases we could have a good prosecution if you know who knows it. So in a nutshell, this is what we are doing for corruption. We are saying let the information be there. If you want to prosecute people, our team at PPDA, many of our management team are working together with a number of investigation agencies. And that's good because they will have to produce a good report, authentic and period, instead of somebody just running around.
Dr. Levi, let me, we've actually run out of time. Just give us the link to that particular portal, the EGP, if someone wants to access it very, very briefly. The electronic government procurement, is it a portal? How do I access it?
Just go on PPDA. I've given you the card.
Yes.
Just go on the website of PPDA. The links are there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Many thanks for making time to speak to us, gentlemen. Just to my left, Dr. Levi Kavagambe, and to my extreme left, Dr. Levi happens to be a PPDA board member, and to my extreme left, we have Mr. Gilbert Sendugwa, who's the ED of the Africa Freedom of Information Center. That's where we'll leave it for this fascinating conversation on corruption and infrastructure, not forgetting transparency of this whole business around public procurement and, of course, disposal. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Morning at NTV after this.